Burma, also known as the Myanmar, is bordered to the south by Thailand and to the north by India and China. Burma, one of the most ethnically diverse countries in the world, has been subject to ethnic conflict throughout all of its history. However, since Burma's independence in 1948, various ethnic minority groups have sought greater autonomy from the Burman, the largest ethnic group who have dominated the government. Today we will be learning about two of the most important ethnic group conflicts with the Burman, the Karen and the Rohingya.
Prior to 1948, Aung San was the leader in getting Burma's independence. He ensured that Burma would receive their independence from Britain. However, 6 months before Burma was to receive this independence, San was gunned down. Independence went on as planned. However, without their strong leader, Burma fell into a power struggle that resulted in civil war. Many minority ethnic groups, unpleased with these terms of independence, began fighting the government for their own rights. The Karen and the Rohingya are two of the most prominent ethnic groups to be ethnically cleansed. This civil war between the Burman government and its minority ethnic groups continues to this very day.
The Karen people originated in Mongolia and moved into Burma about 3,000 years ago. The Karen were historically a rural people living along the rivers and were traditionally a unique form of animist, for they didn't believe in a multitude of unique spirits. Instead, they believed in one great spirit ruled the earth, water, and sky. Although the Karen have been in Burma for centuries, the last census in Burma was conducted by the British in 1931, including a calculation of some 1.4 million for the Karen. However, this is considered to be a significant undercount. The census was prepared for the British by officials largely for the Burman ethnic group, and we believe that they only counted the Karen Buddhists as Burman. In 1942, the Japanese estimated the Karen population at 4.5 million. This showed the lack of acknowledgments toward the Karen by the Burmans and the Burmese government. The Karen were one of the major groups to ask for autonomy after the granting of Burmese independence in 1948. They founded the Karen National Union, which aimed to give the Karen a say in their government and possibly their own state. The Burmese government aims to destroy the Karen's crops and villages, hoping to starve and kill them without drawing international attention. The military gains control of the land and forces the Karen to build military bases, which leads to more villagers and crops burned. The Karen are subjected to forced labor without pay, human trafficking, and child labor. Rape is used very commonly in Burma as a weapon of war. The government uses Burmanization or rape to impregnate Karen women so that it will produce mixed children, exterminating pure-blood Karens. Another method of Burmanization was recruiting child soldiers for war. The government declared that much of the eastern Burma is a free fire zone, which is where the government can act indiscriminately toward the citizens there. He was one of the student leaders who had organized the nationwide popular uprisings in Burma in 1988, calling for democracy, human rights, and an end of military rule. I served as a vice chairperson of All Burma Federation of Student Unions, the largest national student organization in Burma, which had been outlawed by the military junta. As a leader, I was arrested in April 1989 by military intelligence and sentenced to 4 years imprisonment with hard labor by a military count. I was released from prison in July 1993. I was 31 years old when I was released. Since then, I have been frequently harassed by military intelligence and local authorities. They came to my house at midnight to check whether I was at home. They followed me wherever I went. They threatened my friends and neighbors not to befriend me. They put pressure on potential employers not to hire me. Sometimes, especially when foreign dignitaries or UN Special Envoy was visiting Burma, I was detained for a few days by military intelligence to prevent me from meeting with them. I realized that I would be continuously harassed and rearrested at any time, so I decided to leave the country. In March 1995, I left Burma at the age of 33. The Rohingya community in Burma traces back to the 8th century, and they claim to be the original settlers of the Rakhine. The Rohingya people are the Sunni Muslims population of Burma, and they possess no legal status and receive severe discrimination, abuse, and violence. The Rakhine state is one of the poorest states in Burma, and they often suffer from economic discrimination along with cultural repressions. These people have resided in Burma for many years, yet Burma's citizenship laws possesses no legal records of this ethnic group. They are considered Bengalis, which are illegal aliens from Bangladesh, and receive periodic campaigns of violence and persecution. The Rohingya must obtain official permission from the government to marry and have restrictions on the number of offspring the children can produce. The maximum for many areas is 2 offspring, and the other children in violation of this law cannot be registered and are ineligible for the government services such as education. Thus far, estimates of 60,000 Rohingya children are illiterate. The Rohingya must also acquire official permission from the government before traveling, even to a nearby village. These permissions often include long waits, intrusive scrutiny, and expensive fees and bribes before the permission is granted. These permits are also restricted from the Rohingya from going to post-primary education, markets, employment, and healthcare.
Also, these people are forced to do labor without pay for the military and government authorities, most of which is done by children. They are also subjected to confiscation of property, arrest, detention, physical and sexual torture. They are also prohibited from employment in the education, medical, and engineering professions. And they are segregated from some medical facilities, and few businesses will hire them to do jobs besides manual labor. Often the Buddhist monks and the leader Yu Wayartha and local Rakhine politicians lead many attacks on these peoples, and the state security ignores or joins in on the attacks. This violence often forces the Rohingya to abandon their homes and villages. They are held in concentration camps, specifically called International Displaced Person camps, and live in horrid conditions. Whenever humanitarians attempt to help, they are often turned away. These IDP camps use barricades and barbed wire to prevent the Rohingya from leaving to receive education, adequate food, and medical services. Some of the camps have makeshift tents and cabins built on top of rice paddies. These camps can easily be flooded by monsoons that often hit Burma. If the people residing in these camps survive, they could face catching malaria and waterborne diseases. Since the year 2013, the Burmese government has attempted to provide adequate shelter and allow humanitarians to access to IDP camps. However, in return for these efforts, they must be registered as Bengali. Then, in May 2013, the government decided to investigate the 2012 violences. This group lacked any Rohingya members. They sought to improve the conditions and try all those guilty of the violence, and they also recommended that the Rohingyas take birth control to slow their population growth.
Thein Sein, the president of Burma, has promised to regulate the legal status of the Rohingya, but also states that the Burmese government does not need to change the citizenship laws that allow the Rohingya to obtain citizenship. Ever since the month of March, anti-Muslim speeches have been pouring out, and the Buddhist monks have been a huge part of it. Violence usually concludes these speeches. A few months later, on July 12th, the NASCA, or Border Immigration Headquarters, was abolished, which was a positive movement. He also said in a speech of July the 15th that there was a zero tolerance for the violence and the need for a more united country.
Ever since the month of March, anti-Muslim speeches have been pouring out, and the Buddhist monks have been a huge part of it. Violence usually concludes these speeches. A few months later, on July 12th, the NASCA, or Border Immigration Headquarters, was abolished, which was a positive movement. He also said in his speech on July of the 15th that he had zero tolerance for the violence and the need for a more united country. So far, there has not been any other agencies similar to this created, but the Rohingya still continue to receive hatred and segregation. In August, 6 Rakhines were persecuted for murdering Rohingya bus passengers in July of 2012, but so far, all of those persecuted have been Rohingya.
Outside forces have attempted to help. There are many websites and social media pages dedicated to ending this genocide. United States President Barack Obama has visited Burma, and the United Nations has seen the devastation taking place. EndGenocide.org is a website with a petition that asks for full name, address, and emails to send a letter to President Obama to gain support to stop this genocide. This is not the only website.
Foreign relations, especially the Western nations, are stretched thin due to the ruling junta's human rights mistreatments.
The European Union and the United States have placed important bans on investments by their firms and created an arms of embargo on Burma. Asian countries have continued willingly on investing in Burma, predominantly in natural resources withdrawals. China and India possess close relations with Burma and help finance the military aid. Many innocent people were killed, resulting in heartbreak, tragedy, and bitterness. Wives became widows, children became orphans, and future generations were lost. The effects of the genocide still continue to this day. The Karen and Rohingya still receive segregation and discrimination from the Burmese government. This genocide has not been resolved and continues to this day.